Hi, everyone, and many thanks for joining us today live, or also, of course, a little bit into the future to those that might hear the recording later on. Um, it's wonderful that you can all be here today. My name is Lenneke Schils. I'm Global Insights Director at GfK, and today we have a pretty packed agenda for you in our behavior change webinar in times of instability. I think I'm just gonna cut right to it. So for today, there is, I would say, a few points that really we felt we needed to address. So that makes our agenda for today. Mainly, and firstly, I would like to talk about how rational shopping is really intensifying further. And this especially means that category conversion is becoming more critical today. And we'll of course dive into what that means. And in order to increase really the opportunities of being bought, we'll then look at where is the shopper actually moving to in terms of channel choices, but also in terms of what really resonates with the shoppers when it comes to trends they follow or product benefits they seek. And finally, we'll talk about how to communicate in these times directly to your audience. I am really especially pleased that it's not just me today. I am joined by four wonderful colleagues that will bring their perspective on how the situation really is in their local markets. And they all come from quite different markets in terms of economic outlook and how the situation and the cost of living crisis is evolving. So we'll have Miriam commenting on the Nordics, being Sweden and Denmark, Diana commenting on Romania, Anna Katarina on Germany, and I think I speak on behalf of all of us that we are especially grateful and pleased that also we are joined today live by Marina, our dear colleague from Ukraine, to comment on her local market. So you'll hear from all of them a bit later on. A short note on the sources used. So we'll be drawing from our behavioral data that we capture in our consumer panels across Europe, where we not only know what people buy, but also really have a really good understanding of who shoppers are and what really drives their choices. And addition to that, we have just quite recently, I might add, completed our behavior change survey for the second time this year, which really allows us to have a good pulse check on the latest shopper sentiment and especially their intentions and motivations into the near future in these quite volatile times. So deep diving then into the topic for today, the first takeaway really that would not really be surprising, but is still really important to see how this is taking place. It's that rational shopping is further intensifying, and this rationality is actually going beyond just shopping measures, but it's more a total lifestyle change. As at this moment, more than 3/4 or about 3/4 of European households are saving energy on a daily practice. So that might be recognized by most of you, supposedly, that this is something that is really becoming part of our normal lifestyle. But moreover, what is quite, I would say, maybe even shocking to know is that for more than half of European shoppers, saving wherever they can, so including on daily needs, so groceries, is really not a choice, but it's a pure necessity. They have to save wherever they can. And this, of course, means that they will be forced to, well, carry out a quite intricate balancing act. And these consequences hereof will be felt not just this year, but way beyond 2022 in things that are relevant to our business, such as sticking to cheaper brands, which 59% of shoppers plan to do. But more notably as well, it means that, again, we are turning more inward looking. And with that, I mean cutting out of home behaviors at the favor of homing in. Because also more than 60% say they rather save now on eating out than on special dining at home, even though there's a fair share of people that doesn't really want to cut down on out-of-home entertainment after the long COVID period. This is still a choice that needs to be made. Now, looking at the financial situation of households, we see a slight increase compared to a half year ago. So really the onset of the crisis, the cost of living crisis, that is, in that now 38% of Europeans are struggling financially. So a slight growth of 4%. But it's especially the underlying country dynamics that show quite a complex picture. There's a few countries where the amount of shoppers that are struggling, so meaning they hardly have enough money to make ends meet, or they really fall short at the end of the month, is truly rising in countries like the Netherlands, Austria, Denmark, Poland, and most notably Hungary. And we're also seeing that across Europe, there is a slight increase in the worries about job security. Now, if we put these two factors, so that is the budget you have at hand, but also how certain you are about keeping this budget, so basically your job security, and we put them together, we can condense this into three crisis type, as we dub them. The concerned, the affected, and the resistant. Now, the concerned are those that are struggling financially and are slightly worried about their job or might be currently not working. The affected are highly afraid of losing their job or unemployed. And then there's the resistant that are financially comfortable and also quite sure that that situation and job security will continue. Now, in all of Europe, we see the amount of concerned and affected rising. And it's especially in Western Europe in the past half year that this is the case. Now, good news, or well, depending on your view, but at least the consumer climate is stabilizing in Europe. We're seeing a really slight upturn in October, and I've only for Germany seen the latest date, and it's even going up a tiny bit again, but this still means, unfortunately, we are at a very, very low point in spite of this bit of relief. And of course, as a consequence, households are really making a lot of efforts to cut back expenditures. And if you look at a whole bunch of areas where you as a household can cut back on, we see that it's especially out of home that is on top of the list. So restaurant, bars, but also takeaway, delivery, amusement are all areas where there's many more shoppers that say they will cut back rather than actually increasing their spend. And this also is the case for clothing and gifts and decoration. Now, looking at these financial situations again, so the shoppers that are struggling versus the shoppers that are comfortable, it's of course unsurprising that the comfortable need to take less measures or need to cut back less. But what I find quite confounding really is that there is a huge gap in certain particular areas. So this is especially when it is the ability to spend on holidays, restaurants, amusement, but also on a few areas that are quite fundamental to one's well-being and health. So that is on sports and gym equipment, memberships, and also on beauty lifestyle treatments. So for a big chunk of Europeans, it actually really means kind of a perpetuation of lockdown situations where before we couldn't spend on these things, but now we still really can't. Looking into a bit more particular behaviors or actions really that we can take, I think there's really no one or virtually no one that hasn't changed their behaviors one way or the other, even amongst the comfortable. As a reaction to continued inflation. And these actions, they group quite nicely. With firmly on the top, you'll see eating at home more, which we already saw. And in the second stage, which around 50% of households do. It's changing these behaviors when it comes to how they shop. So different stores, changing what you shop, the types of brands. And then in a third tier, it's a lot of behavior. So this applies to about 1 in 3 shoppers. Behaviors related to saving energy, so switching to different washing cycles, taking shorter showers, for example, using less home appliances, and also planning more according to budget, your recipes and your meal preparation. And then in a almost like fourth tier, it's much less popular measures, are things that would cut down the homeliness. So entertaining in home or cooking less elaborate meals, which is still employed, but by much less amount of shoppers. The flags on the right, of course, show and indicate the countries where these behaviors are the highest. Now, for example, looking at Italy, you can see already that for this particular country, it gears really much around energy saving. For example, home appliances, we see 1 in 3 Europeans using these less. But in Italy, this is as much as 51%. So there's also a lot of country nuances here. Now, these home appliances might be, of course, of interest to some of you that work in particular categories. And it is especially oven, followed by washing machine, that are appliances that are being used less. The oven is used less by 18% of all Europeans. So that's quite significant and might, of course, have an impact on certain categories being bought. Another point to this matter that I think is quite vital to your chances of also ending up in the basket is the planning recipes according to budget, because we see a huge differentiation here between the comfortable and the struggling. So for the comfortable, only 16% actually recur to this as a coping strategy, and it's one of the least popular measures all the way in the bottom. For the struggling, 46% employ this strategy, and it's quite there in the top. So this, of course, means that for this very big group of shoppers that are struggling, impulse behaviors or buying more than you need is really a thing of the past. So this really brings me then to the second point on the importance of nurturing and growing category entry points, as a lot of categories will find it harder to find their way into the basket. Now, turning really into FMCG and more particular some categories later on, we saw that in the spring of 2022, 51% of Europeans were really worried about price rises and would change their behaviors accordingly. Now, half year later, still 45% is worried about further price increase and is changing their behaviors even further than they already did. So we can expect a lot of intensification of these coping strategies. And we also see these coping strategies expanding more into other areas as well, such as out of home, but also, for example, buying small domestic appliances. Now, there's many different coping strategies, of course, you can turn to, such as buying less, buying not at all, buying mainly on promotion, and we'll have a deeper look into those. Point being is that most of the coping strategies are growing and will keep on growing over the next few months. So this goes for the top behavior of checking prices, but also a lot of the other behaviors we're tracking, such as, and especially switching away from premium brands to cheaper ones and doing more home cooking. And most importantly here again, really zooming in on this group of struggling, you can see that there's two things that really sets them apart in their needs to really make ends meet and behaviors they then will change, which is firstly keeping the total basket amount low. So they'll more actively really be mindful of the total amount, because out of pockets are very important, of course, in managing the basket and the spend, and it's treating oneself. So even though this behavior is declining across all Europeans, so it was already a lot of Europeans saying, I'll treat myself less than before, and now this is even less. So it's intensifying, I would say, in that sense. And this goes even more for the group of struggling. So gratification also really has no place in the basket. Now, of course, these coping strategies really differ per category, and they're not as intense for all of them. So looking at this group that has said, yes, I really worry about rising prices and I'll change my behavior, there's a few categories that they indicate that they will turn to most next to change or further change their common behavior. So that is alcoholic drinks, in the first place, confectionery, cosmetics, frozen food, and meat and fish. Now, across all of the categories we measured, there's actually 2 coping strategies that are really growing, which more than anything is, I'm not going to buy this product or this category group any longer. So again, point making, that one of the main challenges for the upcoming time is making sure your category is top of mind. Now, there's a lot of variation in the coping measures per category. So looking, for example, into meat and fish, it's much more about buying cheaper or buying products on offer, whereas frozen food or, for example, alcoholic drinks, it's about buying less or not buying it at all anymore. And I think now it would be really nice to hear a little bit about how all of these dynamics really play out in different markets across Europe. So Germany, Romania, and I would really like to start with Ukraine, obviously the most challenging market of them all at this time. So Marina, if you're ready, hopefully, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lenika. I am happy to present now Ukrainian market. Ukraine has suffered from Ukraine had suffered from full-scale invasion for 9 months yet. In March, hostilities covered 10 regions and the capital, Kiev area, which previously had formed more than 55% of Ukrainian GDP. In areas where bombing and occupation was active, many businesses stopped working because they were destroyed partly or fully, and because of safety reasons. But in November now, thanks to Ukrainian armed forces and support from many countries, the number of occupied region and region with active hostilities declined to 5. And some part of business has been renewal or relocated in more safety region. If it could be said in our condition safety. As a result, markets are ongoing constant transformation, both in terms of supply capacity and scaling manufacturers, retailers, and in terms of distribution and activity of real demand among consumers. Unlike other markets, fast-moving consumer goods market, is growing, but growth is driven by inflation only. Real consumption has significantly decreased, minus 9%. Even if considered only more or less normal region without temporary occupied and active military zones. This is expected result, given that share of population with not enough money to cover on expensive rise from 4% to 14%. And in general, Ukrainian people are very cautious with spending. Also expected result is decline in shopping frequency because of safety, and increase correspondingly loyalty to retailer. Consumer try to do all purchases in one place, but at the same time, up-down trading is not significant, only minus 0.4%. Why? Partly it could be explained by supply, but only partly. According to our long-term observation in Ukraine, in crisis situation, Ukrainians are more likely to be ready to buy less, but maintain the usual level of products. As we can see, in first months after the invasion, intense brand switching was driven by panic and, of course, of limited supply. The switch was rather forced. Many brands were unable to meet increased demand. At the same time, the warehouse infrastructure and part of local production facilities were destroyed. Part of production facilities ended up in the temporarily occupied territory, so logistics was destroyed. At this time, many consumers were forced to add new brands to their repertoire because usual brands were absent. Then rapid restructuring of logistics began. Direct deliveries from more calm region or from abroad. Again, new brands appeared on the shelf. As we can see in summer time, supply have recovered and consumer have calmed down, but brand volatility is still higher compared to previous year. And the leader change in every second category. But total empowerment is not observed yet, as well as a total switching to economy brand. Rather, we see a polarization. Premium segment and private label improved their position, pressing leader and economy brands. The middle segment, the main of in the Ukrainian market, has also grown in many categories. But in general, about changing consumer preference, it's too early to say, because consumers have not yet fully experienced the changes in their income. And many consumers are trying to maintain and follow their consumer habits and searching for and waiting for back for usual brands. I can say that Ukrainian consumers strive to maintain his formal, normal life. And previous level of consumption, familiar brands, this is a part of normal life. In other words, emotional release. But situation this brand position is very different in different categories. I lost my slide.
Yeah, I think probably your connection must be a little bit slow.
Yes.
I'll push it for you, and now it'll be on.
Yeah,
I see it already.
Yes, but I need next slide. But maybe I cannot see. But I hope
the slide that is. I think now on the audience is the slide where you have the different categories.
The categories, yes. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's the one you're looking for, I think. Right?
Yeah. Where buyers see what they pay for when they see brand value. They rather buy less but better products, also premium one. For example, premium segment increase in confectionery, cold beverage, alcohol. The middle segment, the main one in the Ukrainian market, has also grown in many categories. But I also can say that many leaders lost their position due to problems with supply, inability to produce the assortment familiar to Ukrainian consumer, support of Ukrainian brands, etc. But we can see also that economy brands graph in fat, household categories, and also in dairy categories. The situation is not expected to improve quickly. We all understand that. On the contrary, real income will decrease in the nearest terms, and unfortunately, inflation will accelerate. Annual forecast plus 30% versus previous year. But despite of war and such difficult conditions, Ukrainians are very optimistic about future.
Well, that's really good to hear, Marina. And I think we're really happy that you made it today. I know it was quite a challenge. There are a lot of power outs and so forth, or even worse things. So thank you. And sometimes business as usual is one of the best medicines. So thank you very much, Marina. Now. Next, I'd like to move to another market that is neighboring Ukraine and has some market similarities, of course. So, Diana, would love to hear from you.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm not trying to soften the things, and that's not why I'm dressed in pink. But I just would like to talk about a very interesting match that happened over the past years between brands and private label. So they each turned in scoring goals, meaning that 2019 was the private label that contributed the most to the FMCG growth, while then the pandemic came and the brands were more powerful. But back in 2022, private label, really managed to increase to 25% market share and also contributed the most to the FMCG growth, around 70%. And this contribution can be seen across all the macro segments that we monitored, with one exception, which is beverages. As you see here, the private label are still weak at around 11%, and the brands dominate the categories. Of course, with all this difficult economic context, there is a lot of pressure on the consumer's budget, and sometimes the best option is just to choose a private label whose price is often just a little bit than more expensive than half of a brand price. So what should be the first option for the producer then? To just cut the price? Apparently is not necessarily the case. We just look here at the correlation between price index between branded and private label, and the share of private label within these categories. And if we look at beverages, for example, in the categories where the brands are twice as more expensive than private label, the private label share is 16%. And in the categories where the price difference between those two is not so big, then the private label share is bigger. It's 22%. So it's just the contrary. What does it mean? Is that where brands deliver in terms of message, in terms of trust, innovation, and the perceived quality, they can dominate the category and be very successful. What is happening in Romania over the past year is that consumers are putting less brands in their basket. Also, in 7 out of 10 brands, the loyalty is decreasing. In consumer panel, probably most of you know, we have a very pragmatic definition of the brand loyalty. Is basically how much a brand buyer is covering the need of the category within the specific brand. And you can see here the loyalty is decreasing across the selected categories, but there is quite a big difference between them. For example, in toothpaste, the average loyalty is around 45%, while in yogurt is only 13%. Of course, this is also depending on the purchasing frequency, so the possibility of buyers of switching between brands, and also the concentration on the market between the players. So is there any chance of premiumization for brands? The answer is always, it depends. As you can see here, also in Romania, there is a downtrading happening. So the premium brands are decreasing. Also the private label, both premium and budget, are gaining more share. And the mainstream segment is squeezed between both parts. But still, in beverages, for example, there is premiumization. There are volume switching from mainstream to premium. In food and dairy, there is certainly a downtrading to private label, while in the non-food categories like personal care and home care, there is a downtrading to economy brands. And we can see the same polarization also across channels. So there is still chance of premium brands to succeed and to grow mainly in proximity. Proximity means supermarkets and modern proximity stores. So also here, of course, it's also depending on an influence on the shopping mission that are happening here. In hypermarkets and discounters, there is, let's say, an affordable premiumization, meaning the premium private label are increasing. And online is still a channel where premium brands are very important. 40% of the market value is happening here. But also we can see a more, let's say, diversity, that economic brands are also trying to make their way. So there is a chance for everyone to be present in this channel.
Thank you, Diana. Very insightful on different price tier developments really across your market and how that differs per category as well. Also, next, Anna from Germany has some insights on how that is evolving in Germany, which, let's say, from an economic outlook, has, of course, quite a different situation.
Yes, thanks, Leineke. I want to pick up the point of Diana, because we also look in Germany mostly on the situation of private labels and also of brands and the trading down or trading up situation. And on the first slide here, you see the changes in the price we have, which are paid in Germany at the moment. So we see in September now around 12% price increases within the FMCG part. That's quite high. And on the other side, you see what are the shoppers in Germany doing regarding the acceptance of inflation, so the trading down in this case. So we see a demand shift of -2%. That is not the same high. So the question is, does the shopper still have to accept part of the inflation? And that's why we wanted to look a bit deeper within it, because as also for Romania, we have a different view here within different categories. And in total, we see that 60% of the categories drive in Germany the trading down. So, for example, shower gels or baby nappies or dishwashing are some of the categories where the shopper do a trading down within the demand shift. What does this mean? This means that you shop less, for example, if you can say, okay, I don't need so much of these products, or you change your product. So you go to a cheaper version, then it's also trading down in this case. On the other side, we have also 40 categories where we see a trading up. For example, here, rice, he accept in a bit way, and there you see it. It's the example of margarine, so the Rama example, because a lot of manufacturers in Germany are changing the size of the product. So the price is the same, but you get less of the product. And that's not the price increase you directly see at the shelf. And that's why we see a trading up. And for this example, this is a good example. The shopper is accepting this price point for less he get. That's why we have also some kind of examples where we see a trading up. In total, we can say that trading down is dominating over all of the categories. And so let's have a look deeper in it. What kind of trading down do we see? And here you see the development of brands and different kind of private labels. So in Germany, we cluster also the private labels regarding premium, mid-tier and price entry private labels. And in the supermarkets, the full service supermarkets or retailers without the hard discount, the price entry private label are really gaining market share. So that's the highest market share we see, whether we see in the hard discount that there's a different picture. So all of these kind of private labels, also the premium private label, gain market share which is much higher than the development within FMCG. And you also see on the left side that within the market, the brands, we see really that is significant under proportional, the growth. So we have not the same growth like within FMCG, and there's a switching regarding private labels, mainly the price entry private labels in the supermarket area. And what is quite interesting here is in the last line down that you see the increase of the promotions, and all of the retailers in Germany are increasing promotions also at private labels. That's not the same promotion like within brands, so there's a different level, but you see that the focus is more on the private label because there's a value for money story the retailers tell, and the German shopper are saying, yes, that's a good option for me, so I can save some money in a different way. And they always think, okay, where can I change the category limit, or where can I decrease my my total shopping basket in which categories? And therefore, it's quite important to look a bit deeper in different categories because not every category is the same, as you already see. And that's why I have an example where we see an acceptance of inflation, and that's in German the butter preparation. In this category, we have the highest inflation here, so price increase over 50%. So butter is very expensive in Germany. And in total, you see only a trading down of minus 1.6% in total. That means that the shopper is accepting the price in a way, and there's no demand shift that the shopper say, okay, I don't buy it anymore. And what is the German shopper doing within the butter segment? If we only look regarding the brand and the private label development, you see a different picture to the total FMCG good. We have a plus about around 40% here for the brands. But also in this segment, we have a promo share, which is increasing over 50%. So in this segment, the changes in value or the gaining of market share is only driven due to a higher promotion. And if the promotion is not available in the segment, then you also switch to price entry or mid-tier private label to decrease the price here. And in total, you see that the premium brand, also as the premium private labels, has quite a lot of problems in this category. So it's more like a price or promotion situation within the butter market. So the decision is not only driven what you say is, that's my brand and I often want to buy this. And that's the situation we have in Germany. It's quite hard for the brands at the moment. So there's a high price and promo pressure, and you have to find really the identity of your brand and in which way you can also attract your shopper, that he is continuous buying your category and especially your brand.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think this really shows the switching behaviors are really intensifying, and this actually brings me to the next part, which is all about like how that also works when it comes to channel choices and the importance of being where the shopper is. What we are also seeing is that these rational components of decision making are rising also as an influencer on where you shop or your store choice. So things such as loyalty cards, private label range, attractive promotions are all rising factors when it comes to store choice. And also more convenience related aspects such as being able to do self-checkout or self-scanning at the expense really of, I would say, service and quality related factors that are on the decline. Now, all across Europe, hard discount channel is really gaining market share. In some countries, even up to 4 percentage points, like Bulgaria. Only exception being Belgium, where the hard discount share is quite stable. And this is really not the end of it, because if we look into what shoppers plan to do next in the coming half year, it's especially and only hard discount where shoppers are planning actually to shop more. So there's way more shoppers that say I'll shop here more than there's shoppers that say I'll shop here less or I won't shop here at all. And this is at the direct expense of other channels like convenience, deli or specialty trade, and drugstores. And in the middle, also on a negative balance, we find online, and I think it's worth looking into online a bit deeper, because online growth has decelerated really after the COVID-led bump in penetration and in market share. And across the countries we're looking into today, we see, well, rather stable picture if we take kind of an average approach to this in the online value share development. When you dive into it with online shoppers and really ask like how do they perceive the channel in terms of helping them manage their budgets, they're actually quite positive because they totally agree. It allows them to have a good overview of comparative prices. It makes it really easy to buy promotions, which we saw is of rising importance. And it's also helpful to control spend. And they actually disagree that this channel makes them spend more than they would in a regular store. So all in all, also here it helps economizing. However, delivery costs might actually become a real deal breaker for shoppers online, as more people are saying that this might lead them to stop shopping online. Now, this trend of intensification away from, I would say, the specialty trade is something we're also maybe seeing a bit when we look into the different online channels people can shop in. So looking into where people say they will shop next, we see a general decline in willingness to shop online and to shop across the different online channels. But this especially holds true for flash delivery or quick commerce, if you will, meal box solutions, and also platforms. And on the other end, the regular e-grocery and the category specialists, they kind of hold up their reach much more than others. So for main groceries, yes. For the quick shopping or the more particular shoppings, there will be some pressure on the channels for sure. For some categories, online is particularly relevant. When we look into the categories that have been bought online and the categories that shoppers plan to buy, and the difference between that, it's especially home care categories and personal care categories that show the biggest potential really for reaching more shoppers in the coming time, followed by staple foods and pet supplies, and also alcoholic beverage. Now, especially personal care and alcoholic beverages were two of those categories that we saw before that were top categories where shoppers were planning to change their behaviors or even cut purchasing altogether. So especially for these categories, online is quite a vital challenge to make sure you have touch points with potential shoppers. But also from a brand perspective, e-grocery is quite important to build brand preference, as especially big brands are able to gain much higher market shares online. And also for smaller brands, online really proves a unique forum to build brand loyalty. So that's quite important to keep in mind. Nevertheless, in spite of these many touch points, and really amidst all of this heightened rational focus, it's increasingly difficult to really get your message across, which is certainly not a given. So it's quite important to really resonate, of course, with shoppers what's important to them in spite of the cost of living crisis. So when we look into the different trends that we have been following over the past year that influence shopper choice and shopper purchase, we see that healthy ingredients are still quite stable at the top, as well as natural ingredients, and high inflation and price perception went actually from rank 4 to rank 2. So again, more importance than before. A few aspects are of declining importance, such as local and regional, and also some aspects related to green behavior, such as carbon neutral or eco-friendly packaging. What is of really rising importance is personalized promotions, and we'll come to this a bit later on. Now, healthy living still at the top makes it important to deep dive into a bit more, because it's changing a bit its meaning and it becomes more particular. And with this, I mean, it's less about the usual suspects, though we still find them firmly at the top of ingredients or aspects shoppers look for. So no artificial ingredients, low sugar. But what is really growing are aspects such as protein, rich in protein, lactose-free or gluten-free. And also these particular lifestyle choices, such as veganism, are still growing. Now on average 4% of households live a vegan lifestyle across Europe. And also intolerances and other allergies are rising. 9% lactose intolerant, at least one person in the household, and 11% with diabetes. So these more like particular avoidances or trying to include micro-level nutrients is becoming more important. Now, this healthy behavior is quite crisis resilient because it really resonates with the struggling. So when we look at this particular group again and the trends that are of major influence to them, it's really about natural healthy, convenience, and also very much about personalized promotions. Now, these personalized promotions are, of course, being made a little bit easier because of the increase really and reach of online leaflets and digital loyalty schemes. The regular use of online leaflets across Europe is up by 6%. And for example, on your right-hand side, you'll see how much the reach of these online leaflets has increased, in this case, amongst the major banners in the Netherlands. And there's one country in particular where personalized promotions are of growing importance, which is Sweden. So Miriam, if you want to comment.
Yes. Thank you, Lenneke. Yes, it's really surprising. 31% of Swedes are saying that personalized promotion actually influencing their purchase decisions. That's the second highest value in Europe, almost double as high as the average in the EU 27 countries. And like Lenneke already said, it's a real opportunity to digitalization. The online leaflets often integrated into the retailer apps. But also when you think about using digital price signs in the stores, using location-based technology from the scanners of phones. So when a shopper approaches the location, that the sign actually changes to the price that's specific for that loyalty card member. And this is actually really interesting because personalized promotions became kind of a standard in the Swedish grocery, and it's based on loyalty card. So we have here, for example, we see ICA, one of the biggest retailer groups, with about 50% market share. 90% of the Swedish households have a loyalty card of that group. And here we then also see a Coop with 77% of households, so quite a good reach. And they're offering special promotion prices on items the shopper often buys, personalized product suggestions or complementary products. And they receive that offer either in the app or in a printout coming extra with a leaflet, a general leaflet. So it's no surprise that we see actually promotion shares increasing. Here's the animation. Let me see. Yes, just go for it. We see that shopping around is actually increasing quite a lot. Bargain hunting is on the top, especially for the Danes. 48% saying they shop around in different stores to find the best price. And that's not surprisingly, as Lenneke earlier said, in Denmark, we see more and more financially struggling. But at the same time, we have a very high store density in Denmark, sometimes even 3 different grocery stores at one crossing. So we see primarily large families struggling in both, or using shopping around in both countries, Sweden and Denmark, and also those, of course, struggling financially, over proportionally shopping around, but also singles and couples, older often, are shopping around. But all leading to record promo shares of, sorry, the animation is not working properly. At least I don't see it properly. I will just go to the next page. So record promo shares to levels of 40% in Denmark and 38% in Sweden. Another way that was identified, especially a good example in Denmark, is waste reduction to save money. And here we see waste reduction actually with 38%, the number one criteria in influencing, growing influence in the purchase decisions. Lenneke, do you see the animation? I'm sorry, I don't know if I see
it just comes on really slow. It comes on really slow. I can see it. So we're now seeing food waste.
Okay, good. Then I see what the audience sees. Sorry for that. So waste reduction can have different ways. So we're looking at food waste, of course, at home, but also in store. We're also looking at eco-friendly packaging, and which is actually the fourth criteria, influencing purchase decisions. Interestingly, food waste has a higher nope. Sorry about that. This is not as planned. Nope. Interestingly, buying smaller portions is used by 18% of Danes to avoid food waste, though it would, of course, increase packaging to some degree at least. And the Danish retailers are really jumping on this trend. We can see different approaches here. For example, at home, you can see on the left the Co-op banner offering recipes for leftovers in the fridge. You can see in store two different opportunities here: surprise bags from Too Good To Go to stop the food waste from the store, but also offering kind of odd form vegetables that normally would not make it into the store, being now marketed as reducing food waste in the stores and well perceived. And also, interestingly, here on the packaging, in a smart way, to just put like another layer in, instead of having to buy two packages, you just you portion the package that you buy. In this case, spread for the bread. And also interesting, focusing on marketing donations for leftover Christmas food to families in need. So really, two goods for this trend, reducing the waste, but also doing good at the same time.
Many thanks, Miriam, as well, and really insightful to talk about personalized promotions, the importance of it in your particular market, but also how retailers are really using and combining food waste as new ways as well to save money at the same time. And in general, it's quite important to put these general trends in perspective. We talked about online before. We saw a bit of declining influence of green trends, but when you look at the vast, I would say, business potential behind it, actually, when we talk about e-commerce in Western countries, value share amount to 6%. But when you look at eco-actives, so those that are concerned about environment and also take actions and purchases to follow, they're worth 23%. So in the long run, it would be quite a vital mistake actually to not cater to this quite important big macro trend of eco-conscious. But even neighboring countries a lot of times have quite different trends pattern. For example, just zooming in on carbon neutral now. In Germany, 21% shoppers say this increasingly influences their purchases, whereas in Poland, this might only be 10%. This really brings me to the very last part on how to communicate then with shoppers. In these times where rationality reigns, it's really emotional messages that do, I would say, cut through the most. Shoppers are more suspicious of ads than before, and the likelihood of brands keeping shoppers still after 5 years is much lower than private label is likely to do the same. So how, as a brand, then, can you really communicate? And last really glance at a way out of this perma crisis, looking at, I would say, these longer, more deeply rooted trends. And one of those that is very much growing, fastest growing Western Europe is the sense of belonging, which means it is of increasing importance to really connect on a personal level with shoppers, because being connected is becoming paramount in these quite uncertain times. Now, this is also, I think, somehow reflected in also a switch a bit in how we use social media. For example, the growing success of a platform like Be Real, where it's all really about showing real life, real situations, unfiltered, is a bit of a testimony to this. For example, in the Netherlands, the reach of this platform amongst young shoppers is 20%, which is quite comparable to when TikTok just started. And the user rates are actually higher at this moment than many other platforms. And then finally, and then we're on time and out of time as well, it is the emotional message that really clings the most, because we have done, as part of our Purpose Impact Monitor, been comparing 20 creative ads, purpose ads, traditional ones that really put the brand as a hero for change versus the transformational ones that really put the consumer at the center. And we can really see that although it's more difficult to grab the attention of younger viewers, they do find especially the transformational messages much clearer. And more than anything, for these younger shoppers like Gen Z, millennial generations, they are much more emotionally connected to the brand message, because they feel more, it understands them, it's making their life better, and it also inspires them to be part of the change whilst making them really good about buying their products. So in order really to master behavior change, and I know we've been throwing a lot of things at you, I tried to synthesize in, 5 quite simple temporary truths at least. So firstly, it's really about strategizing for the struggling. They are increasing in numbers and their behaviors are intensifying. However, be mindful that this does not mean that it's only about lower price, because there's also truly room for premiumization, especially down this, I would say, stairs of agony, where a lot of shoppers are moving their out-of-home behaviors into the home again. But it is all about being incremental to your category, especially as a brand. You need to bring shoppers back to the category and show your additional worth. One of the ways to do this is by personalizing savings, because especially the struggling, they are looking for ways to make it meaningful for them. The age-old adagio of being where your shopper is more true today than ever, with lots of shoppers increasing their habits of shopping around. So make sure your products are always at an arm's length for your shoppers. And finally, even though rationality reigns, the connections that you can make with your brand shoppers are really on an emotional level. So with that, I would like to leave you for today. A few minutes over time. I hope you stayed. And otherwise, you could, of course, listen back always. We'll share the slides with you, and we will come back on all your questions via email. So many thanks on behalf of all 5 of us, and hope to see you soon.